Howdy friends, and welcome to another campground review video. Today's destination of Dead Horse Point State Park is gonna wow you, so cinch up your saddle and get ready to ride. The park is located in east central Utah on the edge of Canyonlands National Park. It is about 360 miles west of Denver, 240 miles southeast of Salt Lake City, and about 460 miles northeast of Las Vegas, Nevada. The park was built in 1959 and is 30 miles west of Moab on Highway 313, which is just north of the entrance to Arches National Park. There's a fabulous Park Service video on the state park website. I will put a link in the description of this 4K video as it has some great professional drone footage. The park has numerous trails for hiking or mountain biking, so be sure to get a map for that. The park got its name because it was used as a natural corral for wild mustangs that roamed the upper mesa of Utah and Colorado. At one point on the road into the park, you will see that the land is only about 30 yards wide, with cliffs surrounding the remainder of the park area. The early cowboys used the twisted remnants of junipers and piñons and stacked them up to create a fence along this narrow area. Once the horses were herded in there, they would close off the entrance and then they would pick the horses they wanted. For some reason, they left the horses they did not want out there on the point to just die from thirst, even though they could see the Colorado River 2,000 feet below them. It's kind of a gruesome story, but most of the stories from the Old West are like that. There are some paths around the visitor center that are wheelchair accessible, but most of the trails are natural and are steep, and some can be a little rocky. From the overlook at the visitor center, you will see one of the most spectacular views of the Colorado River and the mighty force of water throughout centuries running through this desert land. It's not as deep as the Grand Canyon, but its beauty and geography and geology are spectacular in its own way. The Horseshoe Bend of the Colorado sits right below the park and is one of the most photographed places in the United States. The first time I saw pictures of the Horseshoe Bend in the Colorado River, I knew immediately I had to find a way to get there. It sits at an elevation of 5,900 feet, and the park is about 5,300 acres. Not surprisingly, it's been the location for about a dozen movies, including Thelma and Louise and Mission Impossible 2. It is designated as an international dark sky area, so bring binoculars or telescopes for some great star action. One thing to note is that the cliffs are not fenced off, so make sure you're okay with heights and don't get too close to the edge, especially on the hiking trails along the rim. Here is a view of Chimney Rock. You can see that the cliffs are quite steep. When you camp in this area, keep in mind that all the water in this area has to be trucked in daily. So water is available, but use it accordingly, and you may want to bring your own. You actually drive past the campground going into the visitor center. One thing I found very interesting about the area was that even though it received very little rainfall, there was an abundance of wildflowers of all sizes throughout this area, and especially in the campground itself. Our first loop is the Kayenta tent-only campground. You will notice that there is one campsite that's wheelchair accessible, and that site is number 9, which we'll get to in a minute. Starting at site number 1, you can get an idea of how rugged this area is, with lots of trails with juniper, cactus, pinyon, and wildflowers all around. Other small trees are abundant throughout this area as well. Most of the campsites in this loop have a pretty good view of the canyon. As always, if you want to know specific information about each campsite, check out my campsite worksheet. It is in the description of this video. It will help you with a few details about each site, including shade, the size of the campground, and any accessibility issues or other features you might encounter. Site number 6 was a huge pull-through and has a giant camping area and a great view. There are tent pads by the picnic area and another down toward the rim. You can see that the bathrooms are easily accessible. Campsite number 9 is the ADA accessible campsite. You can see there's a concrete path that runs along the asphalt pull-through driveway. There's a fire ring, an elevated tent pad, and a concrete covered picnic area that is flat and connected to the asphalt driveway. This is a great site and a great location. You can get some smaller RVs and vans into this area. However, check the state campground map and get the exact lengths and width so that you are not stepping out of your camper and falling off the asphalt pad. Some of the sites, like site number 11, have rather narrow driveways and sit up on a hill, providing you with some pretty good views. Although sites 14 and 15 don't have much shade, they do sit up a little bit higher in elevation, which gives you a great view. Site number 16 has a spectacular view. However, you have to go up and down steps just to the right of the electrical box to get to the picnic table area. Keep that in mind if you have any type of mobility challenge. On site 18, you can see how steep the drop-off is where the electrical outlet box is. This is a kind of a small campsite as well. The newest campground is the Wingate campground. You can see on the map that I have marked the designated wheelchair accessible campsites in dark blue. Y6 is an accessible yurt, Site 30 is a wheelchair accessible RV site, and Site 49 is a wheelchair accessible tent walk-in site. I have marked sites 31, 51, and 54 as campsites that are flat and could easily work for a wheelchair user. The first yurt you come to is Y6. You can see there's a wide concrete path up to the decked area of the yurt. You can look at the campground information from the state park as far as the beds, tables, and equipment inside of each yurt. There's outdoor picnic table, fire ring, and barbecues, but if you're in a wheelchair, it's a little bit of a tight fit to maneuver around the deck. Yurts, however, have some spectacular views, but there is also very little shade outdoors. Coming down the road from the bathroom across from the yurts is Campsite 30. It's the designated ADA site, and you can see it has a very long driveway and a nice concrete area around a tent pad and a covered picnic table. Shade is hard to find in this area, so depending on the time of the year that you come, you might want to strongly consider bringing awnings of some type. Portable awnings work best, and you can move them around to get some relief from the sun during the heat of the day. Site 31 is the site that was right next to us that we felt like would be a great alternative as an accessible site. Finding accessible campsites can be a little bit of a problem. I always encourage people not to camp in ADA sites if they do not have a mobility need, because there are crazy campers like myself that would love to book them. You can see the green shelters sprinkled out in the area here with walk-in sites for sites 34 through 38. There's a parking lot at the top area and a toilet. The vegetation in this area is rather sparse, but it is quite pretty in the pinkish red dirt, which kind of sets off anything green. As you come down south on the road and go past campsite 45, you come to another bathroom, and you will notice at the end of the parking lot is an ADA campsite for walk-in tent camping. You can see that it is all concrete and has a very nice fire pit and an elevated tent pad. Site 51 ended up being one of our favorites. It's on the corner and has a nice long pull-through driveway. Where the picnic table sits, it is all concrete and the concrete connects directly to the asphalt pad. A big plus is that it has a really great view. Well, I hope you've enjoyed your tour of Dead Horse Point State Park and all of its beauty. I recommend this park highly, but make sure you bring plenty of water and any other needs you might require, such as gas or medication, because it's 30 minutes to the nearest resource in Moab. I want to thank you for watching, liking, and subscribing to my channel. And until next time, so long.